over and over again this three-way relationship between Merida, Eleanor, and the society they live in. In a sense, what the film is really about are these two conflicting views of femininity and womanhood, and how they function and interact within the society. Or as Mark Andrews, one of the directors on the film, said, "Brave is a child's struggle in reconciling how the world sees them versus how they see themselves." It's important to note that at no point does Merida try to be masculine in any way. She is not Mulan, masking away her femininity to take part in these activities. Merida fully takes on as part of her identity as a woman. It's not that she wants to be a boy. She's a girl. She likes being a girl. She just doesn't like some of the things that come with being a girl in that time. She is most free on the few off days she gets, when she's able to minimize the societal influence on her life. At these times, she embraces the feminine qualities that she likes. She still wears a dress, and lets her long hair out to flow even while riding, shooting, or even climbing, expressing that these two sides are not contradictions. They are not mutually exclusive. To her, it is the most natural thing that they go hand in hand. They are not the same person.
Princess does not place her weapons on the table.
Mom!
Eleanor, on the other hand, is eloquent, graceful. She enjoys the arts and music. She's the ideal version of femininity according to this society, and she clearly enjoys the role she plays. She owns it. You see her smile and talk about it with pride.
Above all, strives for, well, perfection.
She's most herself when she's able to take part in all that society expects of her. However, the film also makes it clear that it doesn't place a judgment on Eleanor for her preferred version of femininity. In fact, it does the opposite. First explicitly through mocking Merida's viewpoint.
I don't want to get married. I want to stay single toward the wind as I ride through the glen, firing arrows into the sun.
Putting it on equal footing with the mother. But more importantly, visually, through its storytelling. During the welcoming ceremony, this is made clear by showing her indirect power through the king.
The presentation
The presentation of the suitor.
But later, when the whole thing collapses into a brawl, her direct power is all but stated by the film. All the queen does is walk forward sternly, and everybody stops fighting. They are in such awe of her poise and grace that they literally see. In this world, grace is power, and the graceful queen holds all the power.
My lady queen, I feel to her.
Sorry, love. I didn't, but... Yes.
Later, when Merida rebelled, everybody looks at the queen for guidance, not the king. He's not even in the frame. Even Merida comes to accept this as fact later on. If we go back to the walking scene, I feel like this moment, emphasized with this close-up, was supposed to be the first moment Merida sees her mother's influence and the power in her way of life. Because along with these two opposing views of femininity, each with a different relationship to society and expectations. Eleanor, a soft power of diplomatic skill, privileged in comparison to her daughter, because society allows her to take full advantage of this power. And Merida, a hard power of physical skill, oppressed and stifled, while the men have no problem expressing that same hard power.
Oh, that's attractive.
In fact, setting Merida apart from the way society puts a masculine coding on her favorite activities is a point the film makes. She's clearly shown to enjoy fighting, and physical activities are released for her. But when it's framed in the context of this toxic masculinity, she just rolls her eyes. She has no interest in it this way. Compared to her father, who fucking loves this. A quick interlude about the father. He basically agrees with the mother and with society's expectations of his daughter. His encouraging attitude towards his daughter's subversion has more to do with a personal indulgence and confidence in maintaining the status quo, rather than any empathetic views of his own.
Princess or not, learning to fight is essential.
He kind of delights in all the nonsense suffering going on. There's this throwaway line during the four-way fight,
None of your sons are fit to marry my daughter.
but it's not like that opinion holds any water. It feels almost like just an excuse so he can fight. He doesn't really factor into this main conflict, mostly relegated along with everyone else to the society pile.
The lords are presenting their sons as suitors for your betrothal. What? The clans have accepted.
Eleanor?
Honestly, Merida, I don't know why you're reacting this way.
The Queen's flaw isn't that she embraces and enjoys her role so much. It's that due to that role basically being second nature to her, she's completely blind to the fact that it goes against everything her daughter stands for. This is so natural to her that she has a warped view of this.
It's not fair. It's bad. It's not the end of the world.
The Queen is blind to the fact that she herself is extending the oppression. Merida, on the other hand, is initially blind to the power her mother actually has, and her change must be to embrace some of what she's been taught. But to be fair to Merida, her actions aren't so much a result of her not observing correctly like her mother, as it is rebelling against the idea of being forced to live a life she doesn't want to.
I suppose a princess just does what she's told.
A princess does not raise her voice. Merida, this is what you've been preparing for your whole life.
No, this is what you've been preparing me for my whole life.
The whole marriage route the film starts with actually fits really well. It's basically society barging in and re-emphasizing its place in the stalemate between Merida and Eleanor. It's society being brought in by Eleanor without even telling Merida beforehand.
We've all accepted.
Who's accepted what, Mother?
The arranged marriage plot establishes a game of wit and strategy, presenting Merida opportunities to show what she is actually learning from her mother. Merida's first scene of rebellion is in a way taken right out of her mother's playbook and adapted to fit her own way of doing things. She completely plays within the rules that Eleanor sets up.
Only the firstborn of each of the great leaders may be presented as champion, and thus compete for the hand of the Princess of Dunbroch.
She uses soft power tactics to give herself an opportunity to express herself and power abilities as she so prefers.
It is customary that the challenge be determined by the princess herself.
Archery! Archery! I choose archery.
But she does this in a way that emphasizes how much she has left to learn. By humiliating everyone, she also antagonizes them, which just ends up working against her.
You embarrassed them. You embarrassed me.
I followed the rules.
You don't know what you've done.
We got a bit ahead of ourselves. Let's take a step back.
Roger that. Nomad 2-1 en route to drop off.
So we can talk about that archery scene for a second, because it's a masterpiece. There are so many ways to talk about this sequence that I really don't even know where to start. We have the symbolism of the stifling wardrobe Merida has been forced into, the power of the moment we finally see her full head of hair, an iconic marker for her character and a symbol for her freedom, after nearly 10 minutes of it being complete. The fact that the only way she can actually shoot an arrow is by literally ripping the symbol of her oppression apart at the seams. God, this is such a good scene. All the parts that have been set up fit together so naturally and hint at the directions the film can continue to build on it. Remember that stern walk that the film set up as a visualization for the Queen's power? Well, here it is again at the pinnacle of their first confrontation, while both are armed with their preferred method of power. The film even goes so far as to frame Eleanor in her stride through the bow. Behind the safety of her bow, her weapons and particularly her bow being a symbol for her hard power, Merida is able to face her mother's authority. In fact, I would even argue that the whole thing with her having to take a deep breath and focus for that last arrow has less to do with getting a bullseye, even one through another arrow, and more to do with standing up to her mother, who at this point is at full stride. Her walk increasing in aggression as Eleanor starts to lose her control over the situation and desperately attempts to regain it. She goes from speaking somewhat gracefully to walking sternly to speaking aggressively with a threat.
Merida! Beat it!
And it seems the only reason Merida is able to stand up to her mother at this point is because she has this weapon in her hand. And with it, she publicly contradicts her for the first time.
Enemy in the courtyard.
This is the real struggle of the film. Merida learning what's necessary to stand up to her mother and society.
Enough of you, lass.
And to emphasize that this was just a small victory and that Merida still has a long way to go, in the next scene when she's still full of adrenaline, she miscalculates her current authority and rips a symbol or even the symbol of her mother's soft power.
I'll never be like you. Stop that. I'd rather die than be
Roger
like
that.
you.
Nomad 2-1
Woo!
drop off.
What's up?
Yeah,
And what does her
nigga.
mother do?
That's
The
how it's
luck
done.
returns, and this time it works.
Look at your king and bow.
Eleanor uses this moment of power to get rid of Merida's
Alright,
specifically
that
her
was good.
bow, the tool Merida just used so effectively to stand up to her. We get a triumphant close-up with the bow, pan